Welcome to the live stream for collingeforpresident.com and also for studentloanjustice.org. We are killing two birds with one stone on this page. And I hope everybody's doing well. You know, it's been quite some time since I've actually done a live stream, and there's a good reason for that. I'm actually getting my teeth fixed as we speak here. Not quite as we speak. I'm not in a dentist chair at the moment, but I've been losing a ton of teeth over the past couple of months, and so I've been back and forth between Ohio and other places getting that taken care of. So to everybody who is new to this group, let me just tell you, if you forget everything I say tonight, remember this: tell everyone you know with student loans about our group, studentloanjustice.org, and our campaign, which is collingeforpresident.com. As you might imagine, I am running on, and let me see if I can kill this overlay here. I'm looking for it now. So I'm running obviously on the student loan issue. Over many years, I realized of doing 20 years of doing this, I realized, there we go. Over 20 years of doing this, I realized, and it became overwhelmingly evident in the winter of 2022, December, that both the Republicans and the Democrats are against us. We had held out some hope for the Democrats for many, many years, but when they finally had the chance to return bankruptcy rights to student loans, they completely failed us. And this session, I don't think, in fact, I'm almost positive they will not even be introducing bankruptcy legislation for student loans. Let me back up again. For those of you who are new to the group, nobody wants to file for bankruptcy. It lies at the core of the student loan scam. The loans have been weaponized, and this gets right back to the stripping of bankruptcy rights from the loans. So we've been fighting for that since 2005. But I'm here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, having lived and breathed and studied and written many articles and made many, broken many stories in the media, including on 60 Minutes, the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and many other places, I can tell you that somewhere around 2017, 2018, the entire lending system slid into catastrophic failure. And quite frankly, the pandemic was the nail in that coffin. And if you don't believe me, consider this. As I'm talking to you tonight, 80% of all federal student loan borrowers are no longer making payments on their loans. A lot of them paid and paid and paid and paid through the nose. Many of them have paid many multiples of what they originally borrowed. But now that the loans are turned back on, I am here to tell you, and it is a bona fide, easily verified fact that, 80% of all student loan borrowers are not paying on their loans. And I think that's probably going to get worse. This is what happens when you unconstitutionally weaponize a loan, and in this case, a federally run lending program. So if you're sweating bullets about your student loans, you're in the same boat with me and 80% of all federal student loan borrowers, certainly. That's somewhere around 38, 39, 40 million people. If you include private student loans, it's well over 40. It's closer to 44 million people. So, ladies and gentlemen, I announced my run for president in January, and I'm very optimistic and hopeful about this campaign. Number one, I can actually win. And I know many of you out there are rolling your eyes, but even with only two candidates in the race, Biden and Trump, even still 40 million votes would have been enough to come very close to a victory in November. But now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you, we have RFK Jr. in the race, bona fide candidate. He's going to have many of the same ballot access issues that my campaign is going to have. He's got tens, maybe even hundreds of millions of dollars at this point from very wealthy benefactors. His vice president is the divorced wife of Sergey Brin, the founder of Google. So he's RFK, I should say, is really married into some very deep pockets. So he's running a very serious campaign, and that makes it a bona fide 3-person race. Now, I think we can probably expect that this no labels outfit, which is just terrible. The no labels, in my view, is basically the uniparty. Read their governing documents, and you will see that they are nothing more than a bunch of billionaires trying to preserve and protect their wealth. They probably will run a very legitimate candidate as well. So that makes it a 4-person race. Now, something like 160 million people are going to vote in November. That's actually probably on the high side. But with 4 people in the race, 40 million votes is the threshold for winning that election. Now, with 5 people in the race, 5 bona fide contenders, myself included, that makes it a 5-person race, and that makes it something like 35 or so million votes can win the thing. So that puts us, the student loan contingent, distressed student loan borrower contingent. I'm not talking about all student loan borrowers either, guys. I'm only talking about the 80% who aren't paying. But, there's another 10% of those who are paying and paying and paying, but their loan balances are going up, not down. So that puts us in very serious contention, ladies and gentlemen. I kid you not. So, and I hope you'll go to the website, collingeforpresident.com, and you can read my agenda. You'll see it's pretty balanced. We don't have a fringe agenda. It's not like, fringe left or fringe right for that matter. We basically stole what I consider to be the strongest issues from both parties. And so I think we've got a very strong shot. And I hope that you will tell everybody, both with student loans and even without student loans, to check us out. Beyond canceling student loans, and that is the number one thing that is going to happen when I am president. And I'm very happy to take it to the Supreme Court. I'm very happy to declare a national emergency to cancel these loans if that's what it takes. The president can do this. Donald Trump already canceled student loans by executive order, and there was no lawsuits. There was no controversy. Joe Biden never wanted to cancel loans by executive order. That much is abundantly clear to anybody who's studied this issue with any closeness at all, as I have. The president can cancel student loans by executive order, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm not going to reveal all my tricks here now tonight, but suffice it to say that when I am president, absolutely, federal student loans will become a thing of the past. I will cancel the loans. I will end and replace the lending program. So, as I said, if you forget everything I say tonight, remember at least that. And remember to tell everyone you know with student loans about this campaign. Whatever you think my chances are, tell everyone you know with student loans about my campaign. If we can do even that in the next 3 months, I think we'll have a very strong chance. But other parts of my agenda, I think, are very important. So today, the news broke, and let me just share my screen with you. The news broke today that the wealthiest 1% in this country, their combined wealth had increased to $44 trillion. It was up $2 trillion. And here, hopefully you can see that. It increased by $2 trillion just last quarter. So, people yell and scream about the national debt of $32 trillion. Well, look at the combined wealth of the wealthiest 1% in this country. That's astounding. It's obscene. It's like nothing we've ever seen before in the history of this country. It cannot be allowed to continue. And that is why number 2 on my agenda, beyond canceling student loans, is raising taxes on the wealthiest 1% in this country. And actually, not even quite the entire 1%. So my tax plan as president, if you make less than $2 million a year, your taxes remain the same. If you make more than $2 million a year, that's when the vice starts. That's when we go back to post-World War II tax levels. For 18 years after 1944, we taxed the richest in this country at over 90%, up to 94%. And that even 18 years later under Nixon, we decreased it, but we went from like 90% to 70%. So for over 2 decades in this country, ladies and gentlemen, we were doing 70, 90% tax rates on the wealthiest among us. And how did the economy do after World War II, by the way? Yeah, the economy thrived. The economy thrived like it never has before. And yeah, the richest had write-downs and write-offs, and they didn't pay 90%. They certainly paid less than that. But I think that is exactly the prescription for our country today. And if it was good enough for President FDR, President Truman, President Eisenhower, President Johnson, President Kennedy, and President Nixon, what is that, 6 presidents? Yeah, it will be good enough for this country. We can learn from our past, ladies and gentlemen. And speaking of tackling the national debt, that is the first thing that we must do. So that's maybe the most, and that's not even radical in my view. I think that's just the obvious what has to happen in this country. Now, if you look at Joe Biden's tax plan, he goes, I'm going to get back $500 billion from the richest in this country over 10 years. That's Joe Biden's making the rich pay their fair share plan. That's not making the rich pay their fair share. The rich have absconded with $2 trillion in just the past 3 months. We need to get back 10, 15, 20 trillion dollars from the wealthiest 1% or even less in this country. And Donald Trump, of course, would lower the wealthiest's taxes. So that's just ridiculous. Come on, guys, wake up. Look back. If you don't believe me, believe all those presidents I just mentioned and the Congresses that accompanied their presidencies. So that's pretty interesting. Let me give you a couple of quick updates on the student loan problem. So yesterday, the Attorney General from the state of Missouri, it was actually from Kansas, but the Attorneys General of 10 states, all Republicans, decided to challenge Joe Biden's SAVE plan. Joe Biden's SAVE plan in the first place is just a ridiculous recycled income-driven repayment plan. I'm not going to go into the details of it. What you need to know about all of the income-driven repayment plans is that many years and decades of experience have proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that the overwhelming majority of everyone who tries for these income-driven repayment plans falls out of those plans for one reason or another. Usually they're disqualified because it's a paperwork thing. They get bureaucratized out of the program. They don't, their income verification form is rejected, etc. Just administrative bullshit. Pardon my French. That's the way the Department of Education operates. The SAVE program is just another doomed to fail IDR plan on top of the scrap heap of already failed IDR plans. So it's not even worth mentioning. But I think it is very instructive to note that here we have the Republicans, and they are trying to file a similar lawsuit to the successful lawsuit they filed to kill student loan cancellation by executive order. And I'll just say, ladies and gentlemen, I don't care about the lawsuit one way or the other. I frankly could care less which way it goes. As a student loan borrower, as a defaulted student loan borrower, in fact, but as somebody who has lived and breathed the student loan problem for many years, I don't care about any of the income-driven repayment plans. They're all jokes. But as a political matter, like, I just have to say editorially, how stupid are the Republicans? Like, do the Republicans not realize that 20% of their base have these student loans, and that 80+% of them, 85%, last I checked before the pandemic, were never going to be able to repay their loans? Like, the Republican Party, they are either idiots or they've just been so deeply corrupted by, who knows, maybe the lenders, maybe the for-profit colleges, the servicing companies. There's a lot of different actors with a lot of money to throw around. I don't know. I don't speak for the Republicans, but I can only tell you that they are idiots. They are absolute political idiots. And if saving this massively failed federal student loan program is so, keeping it alive is so important to them, they're willing to lose everything to fight for it. Well, then good. Let the Republicans be absolutely obliterated. I would frankly love to see that. Those people are assholes, anyhow, in my humble opinion. Maybe not yours. And by the way, whatever your political stripes are, you should know I hate both parties. I can't stand the Democrats. I can't stand the Republicans. The rhetoric from each side is different, but it's the same. It's the same deal. They're basically two heads of the same beast. It's the uniparty. That is really a true thing, ladies and gentlemen. So, but how stupid are the Republicans? I mean, what idiocy. Like, look at the state of Georgia, for example. There are nearly 2 million people with student loans in the state of Georgia. Population, about 11.5 million people. 2 million people who vote. And not one of, and 1.8 of those million people are losing sleep over their student loans. So come November, not even probably 3 of those 1.8 million people are going to be enthusiastic at all about voting for a Republican. In fact, the vast majority of them will be so alienated and insulted by the Republicans that they just can't bring themselves to vote, even if they are have very conservative leanings on other issues. So, yeah, the Republicans are idiots. And just to finish that thought, as I said, I don't care how Attorney General Andrew Bailey's lawsuit goes over there in Missouri. I'm picking on him because he was the lead litigator in the last case, the Supreme Court case on student loan cancellation. I'm very bitter about the way that the Supreme Court case was handled. Donald Trump canceled loans by executive order, no lawsuit. Joe Biden used the wrong law to cancel loans. When I am president, I will use the right law to cancel those loans. I will demand that corrupted Supreme Court justices like Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas recuse themselves from the case. And if they do not, I will pack the court. I will pack the court as many new justices as we need to make sure we can get a fair hearing. The Supreme Court should not be a political animal. And that ruling that they did was just so blatantly political. I just can't. I can't bear it. So let me share my screen with you one more time. And this is my last thing on that point. So Andrew Bailey, during COVID, was not Attorney General. He was in private practice. And Andrew Bailey, who constantly, let me just show you what he said initially. So initially, Andrew Bailey was, well, okay, I'll just tell you. Andrew Bailey was saying the taxpayers shouldn't have to pay for these rich, liberal, elitist people's college degrees. And that is absolutely false in the first place, because the people have paid. The federal government has made so much profit on this lending program that every nickel of federally owned student loans could be canceled tomorrow without adding one dime to the national debt, without needing even one penny from the Treasury. But, maybe I could see the point, these conservatives, they hate big government, they say they hate the Department of Education and they hate that whole thing. But here we have, and hopefully you can see, Andrew Bailey speaking of taxpayers paying for people's stuff for free, PPP loans. Andrew Bailey got nearly $10,000 in PPP loans, apparently, over there in St. Louis during COVID. So, and we've seen a pattern across certainly the Republican spectrum. I know I'm picking on the Republicans, but they deserve to be picked on. So many Republicans out there wag their finger at us, the borrowers, about getting some of the outrageous, fake artificial interest that was created out of thin air and slapped on our backs, getting some of that finally written off, wag their finger at us. And meanwhile, they're sucking on taxpayers' tit in a way that actually does cost the taxpayers. Those PPP loans were very expensive. Federal student loans, the government has already made its money back. And let me just finish that thought so that you understand. When the federal program was originally laid out in 1965, President Johnson at the time, Lyndon Baines Johnson, he declared that these student loans would be free of interest. Those are his exact words. Well, today, $100 billion a year, that's like $8 or $9 billion a month, is added onto our backs in the form of drawn out of thin air interest, created out of thin air interest. Think about that, ladies and gentlemen. President Biden, and this is the way the Democrats, and I hate the Democrats. This is the way the Democrats are going to do it from here on out. Every few months, they're going to cancel $5 or $6 billion in student loans and go, you see, we're canceling loans. Look at us. Even though the Republicans are trying to stop us, we're still doing it. So vote for us. And so every 3 months, $6 billion in student loans canceled. Sounds like a lot until you realize that every 3 months, nearly $30 billion in this artificial interest is created out of thin air and slapped onto our backs so that President Biden can do these gimmicky nickel and dime loan cancellations forever. And the federal student loan portfolio will still grow by $1.7 trillion over 10 years. And that doesn't even include capitalized interest. So as a practical, realistic matter, we could easily owe $2+ trillion more than we owe today. So in 10 years, particularly with 80% of the people not paying, if this thing is allowed to continue, even with the cancellations we're seeing over 10 years, we could easily be owing like $3.7 trillion in federal student loan debt 10 years from now. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't have to take this nonsense. Lending systems fail from time to time, sometimes spectacularly. And that's what we're living through, fortunately or unfortunately. I think I'm going to end this live stream here tonight, but I will only say, please take this campaign very seriously. I am. And you should too. And if we all do our jobs, and if we all make sure that every student loan borrower in the country at least knows about this campaign and browses through our other issues, I think they'll be able to live with all of our other policy points on the other issues. We kind of lean a tiny bit conservative on immigration, on China. We lean liberal on taxing the wealthy and other issues. But I would just invite you to have a look for yourself, and you'll see that we haven't rolled out all of our issues yet. And I would encourage you to contact me if you have any strong feelings about any of the other issues for which we have not yet produced white papers. Cutting spending is going to be kind of an important one too. But anyways, I digress. Suffice it to say, we need you in this fight, ladies and gentlemen. If you have student loans, if anybody in your family has student loans, if your kids are looking to get student loans, if you're being hit by colleges to borrow parent plus loans for your kids, or even if you're one of the lucky few who have gotten your student loans canceled, please support my campaign, collingeforpresident.com. We don't need a lot of money to successfully run this campaign, but we can't do it on nothing, ladies and gentlemen. So, and check out our other website as well, studentloanjustice.org. Obviously, our number one by a lot issue is student loans, and we need as many of you fighting with us on that front as well. Join our Facebook group, sign our petition, change.org/cancel-student-loans. But more than anything, guys, just buck up. I know a lot of people are running around with their chickens with their head cut off. People are losing their minds, freaking out, mental health episodes, etc. It doesn't need to be that way, guys. We are the people, and we are strong. And the overwhelming majority of us have, through our wallets, through our pocketbooks, voted to end federal student loans. And if you stick with this campaign and you do more than just watch and wait and worry, if you actually get off your butt a little bit and help just a little bit, the power that we have potentially is like nothing this country has ever seen. 40 million people is a lot of people, ladies and gentlemen. And so I will leave it at that. Tell everyone you know about this campaign. Please do anything you can think of to promote it. We need your help. This is as grassroots as anything has ever been in this country. We're not fake grassroots like RFK, and I like RFK, but we can't make $10 million in fundraising over a lunch with a Google spouse or something. We can't do that. So we need your help. And let's have some fun with it, because all we do is tell the truth on this group in the battle for student loan justice and in my campaign generally. So it feels good to fight this fight, and I hope that you'll agree. So until later, good luck, Godspeed, God bless, and God bless America, everyone.